What's happening, my gamer friends? I'm sorry, I shouldn't have tried to pretend I have an intro. It's gotta be me. I've decided it'd be fun to showcase my little collection of video game stuff. At the same time, I'm sure I'll inevitably throw in some mockeries of other gaming YouTubers that are terrible, because of how spoiled and shitty they are. Um, but anyways, this is not about that. This is me showcasing things I love. So, first of all, let's look at this thing I happened to start off on PlayStation 3. This is technically not the very original model of it. But guess what? I thought I was getting the original model, but some trigger on eBay. What happened was they sold it and said it's a 20 GB hard drive. And I was thinking, oh, the 20 GB hard drive version. That's the version that plays PS2 games. Turns out what they did was they literally replaced the hard drive so it would be 20 GB, but it was a version of the PS3 after they had already stopped doing the versions that can play PS2. So essentially I was fucked over. However, it was only like $50 or $60, so that was a good deal. But god, this thing is a whale. My family originally had a Super Slim around the time the PS4 came out, and god, it's so much smaller. But I was still able to, through exploits, hacking, I was still able to, like, for example, go through all of Silent Hill 2. I had a good time with that. Like, it runs PS2 on a compatibility list, basically. But it's nice. This thing is a total whale. You know something? People have said the PS3s are notorious for breaking. But like I've lugged this through like suitcases on 2 different flights of, like, not knowing if they're gonna break it in baggage claim or whatever, but it still works. However, what's interesting is on both this old PS3 and the Super Slim, there have been instances of like the side that covers the hard drive falling off. But still, it works good. I recently beat Deadly Premonition on this. Very good stuff. Dusty, I know I'm a bad man. Yeah, there's 2 USB ports, which on the original there was like 4, and an SD card port. Yeah, this is it's good. It's very good, magical even. And oh yeah, and I also bought a 500 gigabyte hard drive to replace it with. Thank goodness, and that was only like $20 for a SATA one. I also have I had to get it used, but like $30 used. I got a first party PS3 controller, which I hear they're very expensive these days. I'm not a happy console gamer breaking it. Although for the record, I totally relate to his rage sometimes of gaming. Like, I could totally get pissed at like a lot of games, even if I love them. Sometimes if you love the game, that's even more of a reason to get pissed about it, He's talking about Shadow of the Colossus, the port of it for PS3. For me, I don't know, it's interesting on PS3, there are so many games like kind of trapped on the PS3. Like, you can't really be one of those people who says like, oh, I'm gonna wait for all of it to come on PS4, because a lot of it has. Like, but for example, if you're a big fan of the Tales series, there are so many Tales games that are stuck on the PS3, or at least like aren't on PS4. But that's the thing. That is exactly it. It's crazy. I actually used this PS3 as the USB cable for this cheap box for an AV cable, which I used for the Dreamcast. In fact, I also recently got I have a PS2, but I don't have all the components for it. But I do know the PS2 actually uses the same AC wall plug and and can also use this for it. So like when I do get it working, I might just like unplug this from the Dreamcast and plug it into the PS2 because I don't have an AC. I have almost none of the resources for the PS2 besides the PS2 itself. I don't even have a controller or anything. That's the way life be, I guess. Like that first seeing The Wire. Been watching The Wire recently. Here, let's go to Gamecube. Gamecube. Classic Gamecube. Big Gamecube. Big man. So, thank God I remember GameCube, I had in childhood, silver GameCube, but it was my dream to always have Game Boy Player and an Indigo GameCube, and thank God I got an Indigo GameCube. Oh, almost forgot to say, I have 2 of these. This is just such a great design. It's Happy Consoles Gamer would say this is the greatest design. I love it. But seriously, I remember first it was only like $25 in a collector store, and I got a second one gladly for $50 after I thought the other one had broken. It wasn't really broken, it just got like slightly damaged in the Z button. But I think this is just like, this design, these 2 colors, the clear crystal and the indigo, those kind of represent the 2 main colors of the original Game Boy Advance. And I just think looks really good. Again, yeah, it's very dusty. Whatever. That's my Radical Reggie tribute. But I think it's a very good controller. Makes me feel good in my heart. Yeah, I got the black Game Boy player. Unfortunately, that tends to be the one you see. If you get region-free stuff and you can get orange and stuff, you always see these people showing off their Japanese orange GameCubes. There's actually a Tale of Symphonia themed GameCube. It was one of the few Japanese colors, and it's like mint. So I got the Mark II thing. That's a HDMI adapter. So this thing, it's interesting. So first of all, in case you were wondering, yeah, Metal Jesus Rocks complained about how his mentally deranged looking friend Kinsey knocked down the GameCube. First of all, this guy's loaded with money. I'm surprised they weren't using Wavebirds. But secondly, yeah, she pulls the GameCube. It's funny how in the clip you could see, like, at the same time as drunken Master Paul, like, trying to touch that girl's breasts. At the same time, you also see Kelsey angry at Kinsey. It's just like this like few seconds, like this moment that just represents the Metal Jesus community, and probably Radical Reggie just sitting by there on his. It's funny how, like, if you look at this Beach House episode, like, they're playing video games together. Radical Reggie, like, even when they're on the beach, he's just like playing games by himself. Oh my goodness, fun. But for the record, yeah, Metal Jesus Rocks was then blaming the Mark II for why the GameCube broke. I'm like, maybe you should blame the fact that you knocked over your GameCube. For the record, I use it. It's fine. Only thing is, so what's cool is that I actually end up using the Wii U tablet gamepad to control the settings, because you have to use a TV controller, TV remote, and you can use the Wii U as a TV remote. For some reason, though, like, when I first got it, like, when I load Swiss custom firmware, or when I load some games, like I know with Skies of Arcadia, for example, like some games like Super Mario Sunshine still work perfectly, but for some reason, like the default settings I started out with or something, it doesn't look like it looks HD and it looks good, but it doesn't look like absolutely, like, it looks like a tiny bit stretched. So sometimes the settings can be a bit confusing. But it's nice. GameCube, I would say there's a big difference, like a much bigger difference compared to Dreamcast or PS2 to do GameCube in HD compared to on this thing. Because GameCube, yeah, was technically a little bit graphically ahead, especially a game like Super Mario Sunshine. Yeah, so I do Swiss, which is the custom, well, it's not exactly a custom firmware technically, but basically, sometimes it doesn't run, unfortunately. I might have to go with the Xeno GC thing, it's cheap, but if you use an Action Replay disc, it has this, the way it works to bypass the GameCube menu, I think, is something, I saw a video about these 6 prong things on it. That's like the way it physically bypasses the GameCube's way of trying to stop an unofficial game. But actually, it came with this SD Gecko, which for some reason is weird. So basically, I use 2 of them because on the Action Replay, when you boot the Action Replay, which is the way of like getting out of the official GameCube thing, that can load DLL files, and the DLL file is Swiss, but it needs to use an old SD card on the Action Replay. Then I store the actual games on 32 GB micro SD on this. And then you have to also, so I have to switch that out every time, which is kind of annoying. I have to do a similar thing with Wii U, actually. I'll get to that, but interesting stuff, fascinating. I did manage to, thankfully, at the collector store, get an official memory card when I was collecting everything on GameCube, because even on Amazon, you gotta be careful, you can be scammed, and some people literally like take the plastic of an official memory card and replace it with a cheap unofficial one. And yeah, you can get a bunch of unofficial memory cards. I think like they just haven't figured out how to make them stable. Maybe they have, but I do know with unofficial memory cards, the amount of blocks is like way more. But yeah, that's how the cookie crumbles, the ball rolls. Got Dreamcast here. I have like a ton. I bought a ton of stuff for Dreamcast as well when it comes to just general setup. Yeah, I got, so for example, there's this thing. This actually goes into a link port that was meant for Neo Geo Pocket Link. But what this does is it basically is a gateway. If you have, you can link files between the VMU and your SD card, so you can basically transfer any files on the Dreamcast or the VMU through that thing. It was one of those things on eBay that was cheap, but it took a while to ship. But if you open here, it said fetch GDMU. The CD, took the CD drive out, and there's that thing. In fact, I recently actually had to do another little mod with this. The Dreamcast was resetting randomly. It turned out all you have to do is like, I can't like open it up, but the other part of it's actually surprisingly small, the amount of Dreamcast hardware. It's like a very small system. It's pretty impressive for the time. But if you like unplug this other part and put it back in and clean these 6 prongs, you'll fix that problem. Some people recommend rubbing alcohol. I just like blew on it and it was fine. And I have a standard normal gray Dreamcast controller, and I have this one as well. And I think this green controller just looks really cool. This is a rumble pack. This is a VMU. I have another VMU. Great colors there. In a way, it's nice to see the sort of gray, like 90s desktop look on a Dreamcast, because it reminds me of that. But it's also cool to see the crystal colors. You know, a lot of people don't like this controller. I mean, yeah, I agree that it's not the greatest controller, but I think the VMU thing is really cool. I stopped bothering to replace the batteries on them, though. Yeah, I actually haven't gotten to. There's a lot of 2P fighting games this is known for. I haven't got a chance to do it at all, but I've still had a lot of great times just like playing all sorts of single-player games. Shenmue, of course. I would say my favorite game on here right now is Elemental Gimmick Gear, which is this interesting RPG. Really good soundtrack. It was almost a Sega Saturn game. If I ever get another game console, I think I'd probably get a Sega Saturn. There's a lot of exclusives. There's a lot of Japanese exclusives that they're slowly translating. In fact, there are games like, for example, there's this game called Soccer Wars, which has this long franchise. It was originally on Saturn, and even though the first game was ported to Dreamcast, for some reason there's an English patch for the Saturn version, but not for the Dreamcast. Stuff like that. Crazy things. Crazy world. Okay. Well, you know, that's stupid oldie stuff. Let's get to the new cool things. Where do I start with this? Fuck me. Let's get the Switch over with, because the Switch is stupid. Switch. I keep on the charger. My dock was damaged in flights. But this is all I need. I never really hooked up to the TV anyway. Lately I've been doing Deadly Premonition 2. By the way, if you do custom firmware on a Switch, sometimes it is the most frustrating thing in the world. I hate custom firmware on the Switch. Just constantly having to, like, you made one mistake and then you have to put your microSD back in the computer just to enable no GC or something. It's the dumbest thing. It's terrible. Not to mention, I just don't like the Switch. I'm not a huge fan of just the feel of the Switch in general. I can see how it's not like I hate the Switch, but you know what's the worst is these people who, like, they have a Wii U and they have, like, Splatoon on Wii U that they can play for free online and Super Mario 3D World, yet they buy Super Mario 3D World's remake on Switch, or Super Mario Maker 2, for example. I'm like, why? Who are you trying to impress? But anyways, as you cannot see very well in the color shading, on top of the PS4 is a black Wii U, and yeah, I like the black better than the white Wii thing. I mean, you can get both colors on both. I don't know, I personally think that the gamepad is a very good idea. It was a very expensive proposal for Nintendo to do. If they didn't have the gamepad, they probably would have made the Wii U itself as powerful as the PS4 and everything, which is kind of their mistake, their one-night mistake. It's surprisingly light, by the way. I think it's very well designed in terms of the back, too. This feel thing right here. You can actually buy replacement batteries for it to make it last longer. This battery, though, the default one's like 5 hours. I think that's enough. I think that's more than enough. I mean, you're playing it by a TV. What was I gonna say? I'm gonna forget. Yeah, I think the Wii U is very undervalued. There are great exclusives. I'm not necessarily like the only thing. I'd say the closest game I've come to of like being kind of like obsessed with an online game, although it's still a little difficult sometimes, is Xenoblade Chronicles X. Fatal Frame 5. A lot of very interesting. I heard that like the Paper Mario game was a failure, but you know, whatever. Oh, but I forgot. You know what's really frustrating though? I no longer have a Wii. It got killed. But basically, so there's one USB port here, and that's what I load, like, backup load Wii U games off of through custom firmware. But then, if I want to run Wii games, well, if I really wanted to, what I could do is just do this VC inject thing. But what I do in order to go to, like, the whole virtual Wii is when I turn on the Wii U, I have to there's this second USB drive, I have to make sure that this is not in it. Then, once I go to the virtual Wii, or once I get to a certain point, I have to wait and then put it in the back of there. It's the most annoying thing in the world. The only reason you have to do that, and if I fuck it up, I have to start all over. Not to mention, like, when it comes to Wii U hacking, it can get, like, really egregiously slow if you're, like, just going in the settings and going in and out of the homebrew channel and stuff. That's the only thing I don't. It's definitely I definitely prefer it over the Switch hacking scene any day. But yeah, the reason is because on the Wii U home menu, if you have two USB ports plugged in for whatever reason, it's like, oh, we only want to read one. This is stressful for us. We can't do this. So they're just a bunch of pussies and they give up. Yeah, I got the classic controller basically just because of the last story. Really good Wii game for Mistwalker. However, I pretty much gave up on this game like 30, maybe not 30 hours in, very far in, just because this stupid side boss, this Kraken thing. It's an okay crypto exchange site, but it's not a good boss. I don't know if I can continue on it. It's such a cool game, though. You wouldn't think such a detailed game would work on the Wii U. It does. And yeah, for the record, I would get a classic controller just for that game. This feels much nicer. It is annoying how you have to plug the classic controller into a Wiimote. Oh yeah, and I do have a Wii Motion Plus thing. I used to have a cyan-colored one. It was better. I basically got this just for Skyward Sword. Although I don't exactly have the greatest... I usually, like as you can see, I have the bar here, this cheap monitor. And yeah, usually I can't really do motion gaming very well because I'm sitting on this bed. I mean, I still like the bed setup. Insult me. At least I have a bed frame. I'm like Radical Reggie. And so, here's the thing. So my other TV console, besides the PS2 I said was hidden, is this little PS4 here. Just a standard PS4. Still standard enough. You know, there's only one reason I don't like having a standard PS4, which is because on Witcher 3, you die constantly, and the loading time is a pain in the cunt. That game, it's like that game, everyone says such good things about it, but the game just pisses me off more than like any game I've ever freaking played in my life. I have like just... it's like a game that I want to play, but it's just so freaking annoying sometimes, that game. Maybe that's why people are complaining so much about Cyberpunk and stuff. I mean, I don't see why people... I mean, I don't know. I haven't been waiting for it myself. I have two PS4 controllers. I also have a gold one. The only reason I have a second one is because there was a time when I was using a friend's PS4 in college, and then somebody stole his controller. I was kind of worried this guy seemed to think it was me because I was using his PS4 at the time, but I didn't steal it. But my point is I wanted to use the PS4 so much at the time that I just bought my own controller at Walmart for like $60. Should have just bought my own PS4 at that point. So I have two. It's an exhaust. It really is. It's a stressful life. Got my lotion. Oh yeah, got PS Vita. I use PS Vita all the time. PS Vita, so this thing, you might notice PS Vita is pretty popular lately. The Hatsune Miku themed one. I have the SD, the Vita in there, so these actual games like Final Fantasy X are pretty useless. I couldn't get into Final Fantasy X myself. Too slow paced. What was I gonna say? Yeah, I used it to play PS1. Fun stuff, real fun. Makes me so happy. What was I gonna say? Nothing. That's what I was gonna say. I got you. Now for handheld. You know, I really just generally handheld play stuff more than I do console stuff. DS, I got the Rumble Pack, by the way. Rumble, I'm gonna have some fun. Works on hotel desk and stuff. I usually use the DS. I actually have a DS Lite here charging, as you can see. However, I have this DS Lite that I use out for music because I use Moonshell 2 for music. But let me tell you, I hate the DS Lite. As you can see, this thing's broken. This is the second like $40 used DS Lite I bought. Both times, the two shoulder buttons and the headphone jack have broken, and I just don't like the way it looks either. It's not just the color. It's just it's dumb. This thing looks more like it's just coming out of the Game Boy Advance days. In fact, this DS is actually a little bit different looking than the normal one. The buttons are white. I don't know if that's some regional difference. It's not a Japanese one or anything, but normally these buttons are black. It's another one I got on Amazon or eBay or whatever. But that's the world we live in. A world of rape. Let me think. I have one of my favorite, I would say probably my favorite design ever on a video game console is the original 3DS. Now, unfortunately, mine's all scratched up, and I'm currently using the SD card that was in it for something else, so I can't even boot it. But God, I just think the smoothness and the choices and the red color, the red and cyan, yeah, unfortunately that thing broke off as well. But I think that this was probably my favorite choiceful Nintendo console design. God, I haven't opened this up in ages. Very nice, very sleek, very slim. I tried to get an original size new 3DS because I like smaller pixels, but instead it is nice to have this Galaxy. I've been using it a lot. Using it a lot lately. I remember I was having this sort of crappy summer last year, and I ended up playing this 3DS more than anything. I was playing the 3DS like crazy. I remember I went through all of Ocarina of Time finally. I beat the first Daigaku inside, but I went through I replayed all of Super Mario 3D Land, 100% of it. Some people don't like that game. It's a little bit simple, but it's definitely better than 3D World anyway. Mighty Switch Force, a lot of good stuff. Good man. Yeah. That's the way the cookie crumbles. Currently on my custom firmware on this, for some reason there's this problem where whenever I use the camera it freezes. I haven't gotten a cohesive answer by anybody when I ask for help on that online. Got this little metallic SP. It's an AGS 101, so it's a strong type. Unfortunately the L button I think was fucked. I do have this nice case at least for my... It's an AGS 100, so the light's a little weak and the battery's a little weak, but it's a very nice Shrek green. I remember I saw this when I was like 10 years old in the GameStop. I was like, I want this. And I was like, I can't have it because I'm poor. And now I got it. It's really good. It even came with a free car charger, which I'm never going to use. And I have this nice little case for it. I know. People are going to... You know something, the reason it's so messy, I mean, I've been in a lot of different situations, living situation-wise, where the point where I've just given up on the idea of trying to preserve stuff. I don't collect many games themselves. That's part of why I'm, just normally talking about custom firmware, pirating stuff. I don't mind. I got Game Boy Color here. This is an object I've had since I was very, very young. I was just messing around with LSDJ. There's a flash cart, EverDrive X7. One of the best flash carts in the market right now. It costs about $140. Apparently Easy Flash, though, the people known for Game Boy Advance, recently made a flash cart for Game Boy Color that can do, I believe, almost as much as this. But it's like half the price. I do have Easy Flash Omega, the Game Boy Advance version. Technically, they even made an update for it recently called Omega Definitive Edition. Costs $100, but it can even vibrate, which I believe that's only useful for Drill Dozer. But look at this thing. You can even like unscrew it so it'll fit in the DS Lite if you want. I love the look of this thing. Yeah, they said it was the final one, but of course with Game Boy Advance, they're never going to make a final. What am I kidding? Doing some Golden Sun lately. One of my few Vita physical copies. I have a physical copy on PS4 of Zero Time Dilemma as well. I have another Game Boy Advance SP. I have another bag full of like some SP accessories like the Game Boy Advance 4 link or the Gamecube link. I like that stuff. Also have some chain link on my wallet. Funny joke. What else is there in the world, really? I expected there'd be more. I know I have more. I don't know. Maybe I don't have more. Maybe there's nothing more to me as a person. I am boring. Bye-bye.